This is going to be a short video because the hearing today was not live streamed. I just have a couple of things to share. I know some people were in attendance and I was able to get in touch with someone afterwards. But Laura Owens' injunction against harassment hearing against the YouTuber Rob was this morning in Arizona. Laura, of course, had her free attorney, David Gingras, to represent her there. And the judge has not yet made a ruling at the time I'm recording this. She said this is a lot of information. Obviously, she's taking it under advisement. She wants to go over everything that was in writing, like the motions and responses, but that she would try to get it done today. Now, David, helpful as always, offered to amend anything that was confusing. And thank God for David, because, the ladies, they get confused when they hear all the men talking. So thank God he can help her. Anyways, I can share with you a couple of things. This was obviously not live streamed. There will eventually be video of it, I'm sure. We have people who know how to obtain that stuff. But Laura's petition was largely centered on some vulgarities that Rob made in his commentary and live streams when he was talking about Laura and her cases. She gave videos and timestamps where certain statements were made, and actually some of the statements did not appear in the videos she cited or the timestamps that she cited. So Rob responded to that accordingly, saying this does not appear anywhere in the transcript. This does not appear anywhere in the video she cited. And of course, David tried to accuse him of perjury, saying, well, he knows that he said it. It just, it wasn't in that video. So of course, when she makes a statement that's incorrect, it's just an error. But when anyone else responds in kind to the direct statement she's made, it's like perjury. At some point during this hearing, I'm told David said something along the lines of, people have gone to prison for much less, which is absolutely ridiculous if you're actually a free speech lawyer. We don't put people in prison for offensive speech in this country. No stalking occurred. Rob has never tried to contact Laura or her family. He's never bothered her in the court hearings he's attended. But evidently, David and Laura are trying to make it so Rob cannot attend her court hearings, because they think that she should not have to deal with him being in the courtroom in addition to everything she's already going through. As if she didn't victimize at least half a dozen people. What about what they went through? Are we going to punish people for talking about that? I don't know exactly what, clips were played or whatever, and I don't really need to since I've seen the documentation and what he's accused of saying. But we don't use our courts to punish people for gross or offensive speech. That's just not how that works. I'm also told that Laura changed her story a little bit on the stand, which is unsurprising. I was told that she at first said she discovered Rob's videos because she wanted to know what people were saying about her online, so she searched up her name. Now, mind you, I wasn't there. I couldn't hear this in person, so if I get, any details wrong, I will obviously correct them later. So this is just what I was told, that at first she said she wanted to see what people were saying about her online, so she searched up his videos, started watching. Then later, she tried to say that she found out what he was saying about her because she was told that Rob told people to call up the horse show venue, and somebody called to try to find out if she was going to be at a show, and then she found out all this stuff that he had said. Now, mind you, this is secondhand information, like I just said, so if there's any further context to be provided, I'll certainly do that. But this sounds pretty classic Laura to me. As far as somebody calling up a horse show venue to see if she was attending, this is not a new issue. It's not something I would personally do, but people have been talking about her going to horse shows and stuff while pretending to be pregnant and pretending to have a medical emergency for a long time. So my initial reaction to that, to her complaining that she wants, that he is somehow saying people should impersonate her or harass her. My initial reaction to that was, people have tried to find out about her attendance at horse shows, long before he ever said anything like that on YouTube. She apparently admitted she has no proof that that happened, which I would think that whoever told her that they called the horse venue, whoever allegedly told her that, could easily confirm, but yet she says she can't prove it, and she didn't provide anything to that effect, as far as I'm aware. So first of all, you have to assume that she's not lying, which she tends to do, even on the stand. There's a whole criminal case that hinges a lot on her perjury. Second, why am I to, automatically accept that the causation there is that she's laying out for us is correct? Third, she said that she was bothered because she found out that Rob attended a public horse show that she was competing in. She actually didn't know that he was there, but she says she's now very bothered by that. I'm told she said that she knows for a fact that no one else attended to watch her, and I can confirm that is actually not true. Now, I personally would never call these like horse show venues. I personally would never show up at a horse show to watch her, but people are allowed to do that. These are public events. There were other people who attended to watch. So saying that she knows for a fact that nobody else was like watching her, if that's exactly what she said, well, that was a stupid thing to do because that can be easily disproven. And even if this injunction ruling goes in her favor, now there's going to be a whole bunch of things people can pick apart and say, hey, you weren't exactly truthful about that. Now, I can't tell you how the judge is going to rule. A lot of people are hung up on the offensive comments, which, yeah, they were offensive comments, but nobody is forcing her to listen to these things. She said herself she wants to see what people are saying about her online. If she refuses to exercise self-control and not watch videos or read transcripts from people she knows don't have anything nice to say about her, that is her problem. Does that mean that everything he said was a good thing to say or a nice thing to say? Absolutely not. But legally, that's protected. We'll have to wait and see what the judge thinks about these accusations of him telling people to impersonate her or whatever. I don't know how that's going to go, but somebody calling a venue and asking if she's attending a horse show is not an impersonation. It's not harassment. And there's actually no link to Rob there. And while I've said before, I don't personally find it a wonderful idea to contact these venues and ask questions about her, it's certainly not illegal. They can just decline to answer your questions or say, we don't give out that information. That's an appropriate response. Or if that is the kind of information they give out, then they can say, yes, this public figure is attending our public event. Just because I wouldn't personally do it doesn't mean that nobody else can or nobody else should exercise whatever rights they have. And it doesn't mean that every single person's actions who have had that idea can then be attributed to one person, especially if that person wasn't named. Did the person say, Rob directed me to call and ask if Laura is attending this horse show? I also sincerely doubt that that's what happened. I was told that Laura said, that Rob contacted Rachel Mitchell, which is ridiculous because, as Rob's attorney put it, and I don't know exactly what he said, but is it illegal for him to speak to a public official? No. Let's see. I took a few notes from what I was told. She said she was upset that a stranger, came to watch her at the horse show, but we kind of talked about that already. She talked about his sexual references to her, which again, gross. And I've told him it's gross, but still not a crime. I was told that Rob's attorney brought up one of the points that I had talked about previously, which was talking about violence in prison. That's a common thing that unfortunately happens in prison. It's a common thing that people talk about. It's not something I would wish upon anybody. It's not something that Rob wished upon her. The comments he made were, I would think, ill-advised from a personal opinion standpoint, but again, not illegal and not harassing. He didn't make these comments to her. He didn't direct anything to her, which she admitted, he's never tried to contact her or her family or anything like that. Apparently, Laura was crying at some point or about to cry. Apparently, she started, talking when she wasn't supposed to talk, which we've seen her do before. There was a joke that he made, I guess, something about the casita, and I don't know exactly what it was. We'll find out when the video recording of this hearing comes out, but apparently she was just I don't think that he should make a joke about that. So, you don't get to tell people when and if they can make jokes and when that's appropriate. If somebody does something socially inappropriate, there are social consequences. Why are we in court? That's my question. Let's see. There was the note I took about her changing her story. That's right. She previously said she found Rob's videos by searching her own name, and then she later said that she learned that he was trying to get people to pretend to be her or something, and so then she started to watch his other videos. So it's which one is it? Which one is it? The judge took judicial notice of some things. I think the blowjob only, followed by claims of babies, was one of them. The judge said at some point that it was fair to consider the perjury accusations against Laura from her prior testimony. Let's see here. She took judicial notice that Laura was previously found not to be credible by Judge Mata. So whatever Judge Mata wrote in her ruling, that's something the judge is taking notice of here. Her declaration in Mike's case in California, where she said she was deathly ill, was brought up. Unfortunately, I don't have too many notes on that from the conversation I just had with somebody who was there, but that's something I guess we'll get to see in the video of the hearing, which, it will eventually be fair game for her to be asked about probably in other cases. As I'm recording this, I'm actually seeing that somebody posted some notes on Reddit. So I can't remember if I said this already or not, but Rob did not take the stand. He did not testify. Laura did. So right here, Laura alleged that her private medical information, autism, epilepsy, and anxiety, was leaked and speculated on by YouTubers. She literally like made it a public record in court, saying, and as his attorney noted, and B, she's been writing this shit all over the internet on her own blogs. Like, what are you talking about, lady? Also, I have an email from YouTube where she tried to get like a bunch of my videos pulled down, where she says to YouTube that she has some of these conditions. So what the fuck are you talking about? Some of this stuff is so stupid. I'm saying, like, even if she, gets the injunction going her way, there's like so many easy ways to prove that a lot of this was lies. And, granted, I'll say one more time, that's like if things happen the way that it's being said it happened. This is obviously not firsthand information. And like I said, I'll correct the record gladly if and when we get the recording of that hearing, because I don't want to get anything wrong on purpose, But some of this stuff is just so stupid. Like, if you had someone from a horse show venue notify you that people were calling to try to find out where you were going to be, first of all, how do you know if they were doing it on anyone's behalf? Second, which venue was it? Because there's a bunch of different venues. That would be one of my questions. Third, who did you talk to? And fourth, like, why didn't you have them sign an affidavit to that effect? Be like, yes, I received these phone calls and I informed Laura of them. That's a pretty easy thing, I think. And given her credibility issues on the stand, which is being given judicial notice, I think that's kind of a problem. I was told that David brought up Charlie Kirk, which he loves to do, which I find hilarious because when David was rambling on and on in court about me and Omar, who had nothing, I especially had nothing to do with like the case Laura was making against Mike, and he's rambling on and on about YouTubers and then complains that look at what happened to Charlie Kirk, and this is what happens when people do stuff like this. And then he immediately, well, not immediately, actually, this wasn't immediate. And then he goes and goes to his blog and like dehumanizes me, calls me a worm, and says I'm the queen of darkness and all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm like, you got to pick a lane, man. You got to pick a lane. Either it's people shouldn't talk like this because it causes violence, like what happened to Charlie Kirk, or it's you believe in free speech and can say whatever you want, as long as it doesn't break the law. Personally, I don't really mind being called a worm. I don't. It just doesn't bother me that much. But I find this whole thing entirely hypocritical. That the man who his career highlight and claim to fame is defending thedirty.com is now trying to convince us that there's even something criminal about making sexualized comments about somebody. There's something criminal about saying offensive things online. It's a very interesting choice for her representation, but I guess he works for free. Now, God knows if the guy will actually stick to his I'm not talking about this stuff online rule, which I mean, he already kind of hasn't. But God knows if he'll stick to that or if he'll like go off on a tangent on his fucking blog. But either way, it doesn't matter. If she does make a ruling today, I'm sure we'll find out pretty soon. Unfortunately, like I said, I was not able to attend, and I only have notes from, somebody that I talked to, so that's all I can really tell you right now, but I'm sure, we'll be able to see it later, and I will just say this. Laura uses the courts like this to embarrass people, to harass them with the courts, and to cost them money. That's how she likes to punish people for talking shit about her online. We know this. This isn't a new thing for her, so you can hate everything that Rob said if you saw his videos, which honestly I did not, and I don't mean any offense, but if I just sat around listening to other people's content about Laura all the time, all I would do was like consume information about Laura, and that's depressing. So yeah, there's a lot of that stuff I hadn't seen. I will, just form my opinions here based on the petition, saying like, say he actually said these things the way that she lays out that he said them. Assuming that, right? You can hate everything that he said and did, but that doesn't mean that somebody deserves to have their rights stripped from them. Their legal rights. And that is my opinion. So, all right, guys, that's it for now, I guess. I'll talk to you later. Bye.